Games like Inside remind me why I love indie games. With their imaginations unrestrained by corporate higher-ups, indie developers like Playdead have the potential to deliver some truly incredible and unique experiences, and their latest game is no different. Inside is mesmerizing, haunting, and beautiful, and I can't recommend it highly enough. At its core, Inside is a puzzle platformer that takes a lot of inspiration from Playdead's previous work, Limbo. In this game, you play an unnamed boy who is being hunted down by an organization that is involved in some kind of dark project involving experimentation with human mind control. As you progress through the game, you'll be sneaking by and escaping from ruthless enemies, avoiding death traps, solving puzzles, and diving deeper into the organization's facilities, uncovering haunting secrets along the way, all of which eventually culminates to a grotesquely beautiful final act. Now, something to keep in mind is that there is really not a whole lot of story here, or I guess it's more accurate to say that the story is very abstract. There's no characters per se, no spoken dialogue, no exposition, no backstory, and no explanation. It's a game that relies purely on visual cues to spark the player's imagination more than anything. In that sense, Inside is a lot like a painting. It's all show, don't tell, leaving it up to the audience to interpret the work. Now, whether you enjoy this abstract aspect to storytelling will be a matter of personal preference, but I personally enjoyed it a lot. Although I will admit that I wasn't fond of the ending. In the final act, the game reaches this awesome climax and then it just sort of ends abruptly, providing no sense of catharsis or resolution. I felt quite empty at the end of it all, but perhaps that's just how the game's ending spoke to me, and perhaps you'll get something different out of it. I will say that the ending does have a lot of room for discussion. Regardless, I still think that Inside's haunting and ethereal journey was definitely worthwhile. It evoked a disturbing sense of isolation, fear, and otherworldliness that I haven't felt from a game in quite a while. This was in no small part due to Inside's incredible visuals. It's got this monochromatic and deceptively simple art style, but you'll also find that there's so many little details that bring this world to life, and that makes every frame of the game seem like a work of art. The lighting in particular really elevates the overall aesthetic to a whole new level, and the game makes great use of light and shadow to direct players. The footage I'm showing speaks for itself. The game's visuals are simply gorgeous, and they do an excellent job in providing a haunting and disturbing atmosphere that somehow still comes across as beautiful. There is honestly nothing bad I can say about Inside's immaculate presentation. It's sublime, it's unique, and it alone makes the game worth checking out. Fortunately, Inside isn't all about abstract storytelling and artsy visuals. There is also a whole game with substance for players to enjoy. Gameplay is actually pretty straightforward. You have your movement inputs, you've got a jump button, and you've got a grab button. That's it. You'd think that mechanics this simple would yield a shallow game, but nothing could be further from the truth. I was surprised to find that Inside actually offers some really clever puzzles and obstacle courses, although admittedly none of them are particularly difficult to figure out or execute, but you'll still appreciate how they fit into the grand scheme of things and how beautifully they blend with the game's premise and aesthetics. Everything about this game just feels organic, nothing seems artificial or superfluous. There are a lot of games out there in which puzzles often don't quite fit the environment, it just sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. That isn't the case in Inside, everything just sort of blends together beautifully. I will say, however, that Inside feels less like a game and more like an interactive experience. And I know that may sound kind of pretentious, but this is not the kind of game where platforming and puzzles take center stage. Frankly, that stuff feels secondary to the setting, the atmosphere, and the disturbing events transpiring around this little boy. I would say that it's less of a video game and more of a compelling and haunting tour of this disturbing, interactive world with clever puzzles sprinkled in. Now, don't misunderstand, I'm not saying that there's barely any gameplay to be found, it's all gameplay. But the gameplay definitely feels less like it's about mastering mechanics to overcome challenges, and more like a mediator between the player and the dystopian setting and premise. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's one of the things that makes Inside such a unique experience, and what makes it stand out from the pack. It's just too bad that the game ends so quickly. I went through the entire game in one sitting after 3.5 hours or so of gameplay, and while they were some truly mesmerizing and worthwhile 3.5 hours, I wouldn't say that it's worth the $20 asking price, especially with how little replayability the game has. Once you finish it, there's very little reason to go back. If money is no object for you, I wouldn't give purchasing Inside a second thought, but if you're low on funds and want a game that will last you a while and that'll be worth $20, I would wait until they reduce the price a bit on Inside and buy something a little more extensive in the meantime. just be sure to come back to it at some point. I think every gamer needs to experience Inside at some point in their lives. At worst, you'll spend 3 to 4 hours of your life on a bizarre yet unique interactive tour solving some clever puzzles, all while feasting your eyes on some gorgeous visuals. And at best, you'll have experienced something that will resonate with you in ways that few games do, leaving you mesmerized, horrified, and amazed all at the same time. If you're expecting Inside to be this expansive and challenging platforming puzzle game chock full of levels to complete, or to experience an epic story with deep characters and a lore to discover, then you'll be sorely disappointed. But if you want to try something different and just get sucked into a short but very sweet interactive artwork for a couple of hours, you really can't go wrong with Inside. So there you have it, folks, my review of Inside. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the game if you've played it. And to be further updated on game reviews, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.